a story that has been going pretty much congruent to the NBA Finals, and that is the LA Lakers coaching search. And a name that was thrown in the ring, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, by Woj was Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley, who was the coach of the UConn Huskies, has been in the Lakers have been in serious talks with Dan Hurley to get him to be the next coach of the Lakers. And obviously, when we heard the news, it was a big shock, It was a big shock because the name that we've heard for the last few weeks now, and it seemed like that name was catching steam, and it kind of felt like it was a done deal, was J.J. Redick. Whether that was, we heard stuff from J.J. Redick in LeBron James' podcast. We've heard Shams talking about it. We've heard report after report saying that J.J. Redick is the front runner, and they're blown away by their interview with J.J. Redick. We, as consumers, as fans, as outlookers, thought J.J. Redick was pretty much going to be it, and the only person that we were hearing. So when we hear 2 days ago that Dan Hurley is now in the lead, in the driver's seat as far as the name that the Lakers want, it kind of threw us off, And I have a couple thoughts, man. Dan Hurley, in all respective purposes, is the best head coach in college basketball right now. I'm not saying the greatest all time. At least in men's college basketball, because you can also throw Don Staley in there. You can throw Gino Auriemma. For men's college basketball, Dan Hurley is probably the best coach still coaching. And yes, that's no disrespect to Bill Self. There's no disrespect to anybody. But you're coming off of back-to-back national championships. First time that's happened since the Florida Gators. And you're pretty much turning UConn, at least UConn's men, back into a powerhouse. They were obviously good. They've had multiple national championships. I mean, you have Jeremy Lamb, you have Shabazz Napier, you have Kemba Walker, you have Rip Hamilton, Charlie Villanueva, Ben Gordon. It's had a rich history of players, and it's had a rich history of winning, but it's been a good number of years before Dan got there that UConn men's was really looked at as a powerhouse. They went through some ugly years. So in all respective purposes, Dan Hurley has not only turned around this franchise back to where it would like to be, but he is the best college basketball coach. And I was also shocked to hear Dan Hurley's name because I think a year or two ago, he signed an extension to remain the head coach for UConn. So he has a deal that is freshly inked, and now you're hearing that he is a front runner for the Lakers job. This is going to sound crazy. When I wrote it down, I read it crazy. When I said it to myself, it sounded crazy. When I was getting ready to, when I was building this show, building this episode, it sounded crazy. But the UConn, in my opinion, the UConn Huskies job is better than the LA Lakers job right now. Now, if we're talking about money, then obviously the Lakers job is more appealing than the UConn Huskies job. NBA is able to pay their coaches much more than college, obvious reasons. And it's the LA Lakers. So if we're just talking about money, then yes, the Lakers is more appealing than UConn. But I think that's where it stops as far as factors that are more appealing for the Lakers than UConn. Dan Hurley is a legend at this point in college basketball. His name is more synonymous with greatness in college basketball now than it would be anywhere else. Again, he has done something, and his UConn teams have done something that we have not seen in decades. And I understand that we're in a weird spot in college sports. You know, with NIL deals and now the deal that schools are able to pay their players and the excessive use of the transfer portal, and there isn't really much, how do I say this? It's very hard to keep kids these days because now most athletes, most of the kids that are going into these schools want instant success. And on top of that, they want their instant success tied with money. So now you have people that's able to give more NIL. It's just a weird time in college sports, which is why you're seeing a lot of greats leave. Coach K left. Roy Williams left. On the football side, Nick Saban left. It's just a weird time. Hell, he didn't leave, but you even see Coach John Calipari. He went from Kentucky to now Arkansas. And he stated that Kentucky just needs a new voice to hear because they've drowned my voice out. So I know it's a weird time. And I understand that the thought, and not just the thought, but what has been in the future, in the past, I'll say. What has been in the past is if you want a more secure job and the NBA is calling, you go to the NBA. Because the thing about colleges is there's expectations for a lot of these colleges that there shouldn't be. We've talked about that a ton on this podcast. There's a lot of colleges that have expectations that they shouldn't have. Just their name alone gets them those type of expectations, but they shouldn't have them. So historically, it's been if you get an NBA job, you run to it. Now, most of the time, a lot of these college coaches have not seen success or recent success as soon as they move. Like John Calipari, he didn't see recent success. I think the most successful coach, at least in the first 2 to 3 years of them moving from college to NBA, was Brad Stevens when he went from Butler to the Celtics. But usually it doesn't work. Not even in the NFL. Nick Saban tried, didn't work. You know? But a lot of the times there's sort of like Fred Hoiberg. There's more, you kind of have, because there's more money involved, you kind of have a shorter rope in some instances. Or a longer rope, in some instances in the NBA than you do in college. That is where things kind of differ when we talk about the Lakers. I'll say it since nobody else wants to say it. The only appealing thing about the Lakers job is you will be coaching LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That's it. And to be completely honest, I don't know. You're not going to be coaching LeBron James and Anthony Davis for long. And on top of knowing that, You still have the expectation to win now because you're going to the LA Lakers. It ain't like you're going to the Detroit Pistons. It's not like you're going to the Washington Wizards. You're going to the Lakers, the marquee franchise pretty much of the NBA. They've had losing season after losing season, and they're still one of the most profitable teams in sports. So, it shouldn't be a surprise that you'll be going in with the expectation to win now, but your team is nowhere close to win now. The only thing that you have to win now is LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Which means there's going to be unfair criticism, there's going to be unfair expectations, and you don't have any of that at UConn. In fact, that's one of the biggest positives to Dan Hurley. Nobody expected UConn to be as great as it was when he was the coach, or when he became the coach. As we speak, he is 141 and 58 as their head coach. As the head coach of UConn, he has 2 national championships back-to-back, 2 regional Final Fours, obviously. He has an A-10 championship, A-10 regular season champions, Big East regular season champions, and Big East tournament champion. Oh, and he was the coach of the year last year. As much outside of money, and don't get me wrong, I understand that money is a very important thing. I understand that at the end of the day, you need to be able to provide for your kids. You need to be able to provide for your family. You need to be able to provide for yourself. And it is very important. Money is very important to have. Don't get me wrong. So if it is just for money and the Lakers offer is much better than the UConn offer as far as money, which it probably is, and on top of that, years, but I think that's BS too. Because you've heard that when talking about this, you've heard that the Lakers are going to give him a long multi-year deal. And while that sounds like, okay, well, that means that they're going to give him, they're going to trust him to change the organization, and they're going to give him multiple time. That's BS. Because if you look, you can fire, hell, look at the Milwaukee Bucks. They're paying 3 coaches right now. They'll fire you in a heartbeat if they don't feel like, whether you have a 10-year deal, whether you have a 2-year deal, whether you have a 15-year deal, they will fire you whenever they want to fire you. And I don't care how long that deal is. If the fans start voicing their frustration, if media starts covering your team heavily because you're not reaching expectations that your team probably doesn't warrant, then trust and believe that 10-year deal don't matter at all when they're saying, hey, bro, we're going to have to let you go. There's no question that Dan Hurley is a fantastic coach. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't work if Dan Hurley was the coach for the LA Lakers. But the track record shows that it's very unlikely for it to work. Because there's just a different way from talking to college students, talking to kids growing up, talking to teenagers, compared to talking to grown men, players that are making more than you, players that have more recognition than you. When we think of the UConn Huskies, the first thing we think about right now is Dan Hurley. When we think about the LA Lakers, the first thing And the last thing we think about is LeBron James, is the player. When we think about Golden State, the first thing we think about ain't Steve Kerr, it's Steph Curry. When we think about the Denver Nuggets, the first thing we think about is not Mike Malone, it's Nikola Jokic. When we think of the Milwaukee Bucks, the first thing we think of is not Doc Rivers, it's Giannis. And that is the same everywhere. So it's very hard having a college coaching style and college coaching approach to an NBA locker room. Because at this point, none of these players are looking for you for guidance as to how to get to the next level. They are set. Now, yes, they're looking for you to be smart in situations and guide them to a championship. But it's nah. Like the same way that you yell, the same way that you try to coach an 18, 19-year-old ain't gonna work with four-time MVP, four-time NBA champion. That's not gonna work. Now, I'm not saying that Dan Hurley can't adjust. What I'm saying is, in the past, it has not worked. There's only a good handful of people that you can say it kind of worked. And most of them have losing records in their first few years. And I'm only saying their first few years is because when you get the Lakers job, you only have a maybe 1 to 2 year window of success, because LeBron James is going to be out of there soon. Again, he's about to be 40 if he's not already 40. He's about to be out of there soon. And then you have what? So, again, I think Dan Hurley is a fine coach. He is the best coach in college basketball right now. And I think the latest report is he's 50-50 on the job, whether 50-50 going back to UConn or going to the Lakers. All I'll say is, outside of the money, which is a huge part, everything, in my opinion, is leaning towards UConn as far as better destination than the Lakers. Now, maybe he's just tired of college basketball and wants something new. I don't know. Obviously, he's going to make the decision, and whatever one he makes, that's what he makes. And shouts out to him for that. But if it was me and I had to make a decision about what my future was going to be, if the money is close and if my family's comfortable and I'm comfortable in a sense, and what I'm doing is having a positive effect of where I'm at, and I'm winning national championships, and I am widely considered one of the greatest, at least, college basketball coaches right now, I wouldn't feel the need to leave. I'll just say that. So, we will see. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.